NetSparker, the developers of a comprehensive automated web security platform that includes web vulnerability scanning, assessment, and management. NetSparker's desktop and cloud-based security solutions employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities and provides a proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at securityweekly.com/NetSparker. Elastic Security empowers security teams everywhere to prevent, detect, and respond to threats quickly through a unified solution. And it's free and open, putting you in control. Use Elastic Security to eliminate blind spots by analyzing all of your data, no matter its volume, format, or age. Stop threats at scale with automated threat and anomaly detection, and arm every analyst with fast search and integrated case management. Download or try Elastic SIEM for free and experience the benefits of an open security solution backed by world-class security research at securityweekly.com/elastic. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is flat networks inside the cloud and data center that allow threats to move laterally and compromise vulnerable targets. But microsegmentation using traditional firewalls is too complex and time-consuming. There's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation. Using the identity of machines and software that are communicating, Edgewise offers the strongest protection that adapts automatically to changes. Protect any application in any cloud without any changes to your network by visiting securityweekly.com/Edgewise. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. I do want to very quickly say congratulations to Peter, Harry, and the entire team at Edgewise. They were just, by everything I've seen, I haven't talked to Peter or Harry, but successfully acquired by Zscaler, which we were commenting on Enterprise Security Weekly, is a great fit, and we're super happy for our friends at Edgewise. Layer 8 is going virtual. The conference will be held on Saturday, June 6th. Security Weekly listeners save $20 off on their ticket by visiting layer8conference.com using the promo code Security Weekly before selecting your ticket type. Please consider supporting Layer 8 or one of their partner organizations when you purchase your ticket, as you can basically give them extra money for the conference and or a charitable organization. Some of the Security Weekly team will be in our own channel on the Layer 8 Discord server, answering your questions and possibly doing some contests. Corey Thuen is no stranger to the Security Weekly show. He is the founder of Gravwell and has spent over a decade doing cybersecurity at places like the Department of Energy, National Labs, Digital Bond, and IOActive. His talk today will be PCAPS or It Didn't Happen. And who doesn't love PCAPS? SecurityWeekly.com/Gravwell to learn more. And there is a free, as in free beer, kind of project that you make available for the public. Is that true, Corey?
That's exactly true.
And also, welcome back to Security Weekly. It's nice to have you.
Hey, it's always exciting to come back. So appreciate it. The show is awesome.
And we do all love PCAPS.
No.
PCAPS or It Didn't Happen.
I don't love PCAPS. I freaking love PCAPS.
Right? They are. I mean, it was actually one of the things. I know we're talking about PCAPS and our love for them, right? But like early on in my career, when I was learning TCP/IP and learning about all the headers and studying PCAPS, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I want to do, like, I am in the right field because this is awesome. And folks like Stephen Northcutt and Mike Poore and Marty Resch, we're all teaching at SANS and teaching about PCAPS, and I'm like, I'm all about this. Like, this is awesome. So, and here we are today, it's more than 20 years later, and PCAPS are still a thing that we need and use all the time.
That was kind of the first talking point that I think it would be great to hit on, because we got all kinds of cool new tech that's coming out and a bunch of new things, but all of it still runs on TCP. And you guys were just talking about VLANs with your home networks and stuff and figuring out what's talking to what. Like, in the end, we're still building layers on layers, and sometimes you got to get down to that to the packet level when you're doing stuff. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. It's possible in the cloud. It's possible. I mean, you got to be able to get to the cloud, and it's a network that's going to get you there. And long story short, I was troubleshooting some firewall things. If I didn't know how to collect a packet capture and read it, I would have probably never figured out what the problem was, right?
Yeah, I fell in love with it kind of like you guys. I mean, when I was at INL, we did the Acme Farm CTF stuff at DEF CON. That was a big thing to the year that that the team won was using packet captures to kind of turn attacks back around. on other people and see what was going on. So it's a super important thing when you're actually getting into threat hunting, attack dissection, where you're really having to be on the cutting edge because you might be dealing with attacks that other people haven't seen before. I mean, threat feeds and indicators are great, but for troubleshooting or attack defense, sometimes it comes down to the packets.
I tell students all the time, if you have to understand packets.
Yes.
You have to be able to look at the network at that level if you ever want to work in this industry. I mean, that's just a constant thing I say.
Agreed.
Yes.
Corey, I don't know how you're going to set the stage, but a little background on Google Stenographer. I had heard about this project, but I had never used it. So, maybe for our audience, spend a little time. Just give a little bit of background on that project, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this the tool that we released that we're kicking out is an open source tool called Packet Fleet, which is relies very heavily on Google Stenographer. And Google Stenographer as a project is basically a ring buffer of packets that will sit and listen on the wire and let you query for packets that you need, because capturing packets and dropping them to disk or whatever is not something that's easily scaled. It's one thing doing it on a home network.
Does it hold them in? It holds them in memory for you to access, like over an API, or?
No, it's dispatched. It is dispatched, but it uses it like that, and it'll overwrite. It uses based on disk percentage and various tweaks that you can do to it. But essentially, it's that's the idea, and it's not even full like BPF filtering or whatever. It's a little bit smaller of a filter set, and the indexing is really, really light. The whole idea being, let's just stand up something small that we can use to capture packets, and then if we need to go and get them, they're available.
I see. So like a light filter to go get the packets, and then you can bring them in somewhere else and do deeper analysis.
Exactly. Which was interesting to us because so for anybody who's not familiar, Gravwell is a data lake, threat hunting platform, data analytics, log analytics, all these various things. So our motto, like you saw in the graphic, is ingest everything. So we take syslog data, we take NetFlow, we take packets, all this stuff. We can take it and then use the syntax.
Well, like your slogan, I think we coined this. I don't know if it was on a webcast or on the show.
It was like the last show that we did.
Yeah, drink all the booze, log all the things, and lo and behold, it showed up in our office. Well, I got them today. They probably were delivered earlier. Our stickers, I don't know how we can see those, but and they do in fact say drink all the booze, log all the things, and there's a picture, I think, of Corey holding an axe and a Gravwell mug in a like sleeveless kind of flannel shirt thing.
It's the Idaho way.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Well done. Well done.
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
Well, I literally do log, and that's how I heat my house. So there is a bit to that. But
so
yeah,
you log in a different way, which is
right.
ironic.
Happy to send you some fun stickers. That was Jake Howell. Super. He's a good friend, awesome artist. But yeah, that's the idea. So we just as a tool provide that service to people. Kind of like you said, we do have a community edition available, which is up to 2 gigs a day. But we're also doing a beta program right now for our next release, and anybody who participates in that and provides some feedback can get larger than that. Sometimes up to 10 gigs a day, depending on participation level.
Awesome.
So if you've got a home lab and you want something to absorb all the stuff and be able to search through it, kind of like we're going to poke at a little bit now, then you should absolutely check us out.
And so now, Packet Fleet, right? You need Gravwell to run Packet Fleet to get packets from Stenographer into Packet Fleet to analyzing Gravwell. Did I get that right?
I mean, that's the way that it works the easiest. But essentially, the reason that Packet Fleet is a thing is because Stenographer is not built to do clustering very easily. So if you've got multiple Stenographer instances, then there's not kind of an easy way to just query them all at once if you were looking for a certain flow or something that was across the network.
So you can. Did you do a diagram for this, or?
Well, let's see whether I can share this here. So let's see if I can find the right window.
Yeah, because I think what Corey, what you're saying is you have multiple Stenographer instances, and they're all queryable by packet fleet, which then feeds into Gravwell, so you can basically search your entire network because you've deployed Stenographer across your entire network and analyze all that data.
Yeah, that's exactly the idea. So we have some customers who are ingesting packets directly into Gravwell, and then we have some where that, for larger enterprises, that's just not a thing, and it never will be. Because there's just too much. And so that's where Stenographer comes in. So if this image is working,
yes,
then that's kind of the idea, is where you might have network cards, which is on the right. You're feeding the Stenographer instance. They might have an official icon, but this is the one that we chose to use.
So that's the
if anybody's familiar,
unofficial Stenographer logo. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. They should use this if they don't.
Corey sounds like he does slides the way I do. If I need I take the title and I search Google images for like stenographer funny, stenographer meme.
This is I believe it's Fred Armisen, SNL sketch. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty funny. Fred Armisen is a national treasure. So that's the idea. So you've got the packet captures sitting with the two different Stenographer instances, and they might be on different switches or whatever. And then Packet Fleet will go out and initiate sort of a request to grab the flows and then bring them back into Gravwell.
So this is great for my home network, right? Because region 1 might be my entertainment network. Region 2 is my IoT network.
Yep. Right? So exactly. For me, I've got a switch out in my office, which runs a bunch of equipment out there. And then I've got a switch in the house. And then VLANs using those switches, and then Ubiquity access points.
Yep.
And so I've got 2 Packet Fleet captures off of the spans on those switches.
That's awesome.
And so that's exactly how I've got it set up. An enterprise would have multiple, but that's the idea in terms of how you're going to access and query stuff. And so Packet Fleet by default, like we've got a Docker container. Kind of one of the really cool things about Gravwell is how easy it is to deploy, and that again is mostly us taking advantage of Go. And all the awesome stuff that comes with that, and the engineering team has done a fantastic job with there. But you can get stood up really fast, and so you can apt install this or Docker run, and it's up and going, and you're ready to go with just a configuration file pointing it at your different Packet Fleet things. Although Stenographer, actually, interestingly, so if you do end up playing with Stenographer, one of the so typical cybersecurity, right? Unfortunately, cybersecurity is a pain in the ass. It's very valuable, but a pain in the ass in that Stenographer has certificate pinning for clients as well. So it's not just as simple as hitting the web interface. You have to load the certs and get all the certs loaded up, which we don't, like Packet Fleet doesn't fix that problem. Because of what it is. But when you've got all that set up, then it can query and grab the packets from the different things.
Yeah, but good to see that security's baked into some of these projects, unlike some other projects, like VNC, for example, which just everything's in the clear. And do you want a password with that? It's not really required, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe just to kind of touch on that a little bit more. So this is the Gravwell interface that I've got loaded up. I thought the end of the previous segment discussion was pretty interesting because, guys, you were talking about the vulnerability stuff, and then just like, how do I know which systems on my network are talking to what? And so like that's the kind of thing that Gravwell is built for. So like we've got syslog in here and things that we'll pull up, but then there's also packets as well that we can pull up, and giving it the different filters and things will allow us to search and find the relevant information related to that. So you can do standard like log file grepping, but you can also do packet searching, packet things as well. And sort of in accompanying with this, we did just put out this blog post here that covers the how we set up Packet Fleet and gives you some example configuration and things like that. And so what the Packet Fleet interface kind of looks like. So this is what we do: is we provide a graphical interface to access multiple packet captures in one, to where Packet Fleet will you can request from the 2 different regions, which I can show in just a minute here. But sorry, I want tag equals PCAP. So one of the questions that you guys that I thought was interesting. So I'm just going to run this as a query. So I'm just going to tag equals PCAP in Gravwell just to kind of show that the raw data is there. And I didn't have to do any pre-configuration for this. I just used our raw packet ingester and it grabbed it. But I thought it would be interesting. Like one of the questions you guys asked was, how do I even tell like what is happening on the network?
Yeah, like is my in our example, is my entertainment network talking to my admin network or trying to talk to my admin network, right? That would be an event I would want to know about if someone compromised an IoT device and now wants to get at one of my Linux workstations that I use for work.
Exactly. So so that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. This is totally on the fly, so sorry about this. So if I extract like the packet stuff, pull out the subnet, and then count by the subnet VLAN ID. There we go. Yeah. So I can, using packets that I'm capturing right now, so these are raw captured, these are not through Packet Fleet, but we could do sort of the same thing, is I can count the number of packets on each VLAN, which subnets are present on each VLAN, and the number that there are. And so here, like I said, I've got it kind of split up into 2 different things. Right now, one of those networks is in development. This is one thing that I was actively doing. And there's nothing like turning on VLANs when you haven't done it before, because everything just breaks. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's the kind of stuff that you can do with Gravwell and the power of the query language. And people who are familiar with this, you can do really powerful things in terms of pivoting and extracting the information that you want, doing the threat hunting and stuff. But one of the things that we've got coming out in the new release, which is our beta program, which is the way that home users can get more free data caps, is our Big Bang release, which is coming out later this month. And that includes
is that the code name? Is that the code name for the release? The Big Bang release?
No, it's the literal release name. Because maybe it's not obvious, but Gravwell comes from Gravity Well, with the idea being just take all the data and put it in one spot. It used to be, this is inside baseball. It used to be called Sinkhole. Maybe I've told you that before.
Yeah, now you said
but we changed it.
Good move. Great question.
Yeah, marketing would get mad. But one of the things that we've got now, so kind of like how Splunk has an app store, Gravwell has kits. And these are pre-built dashboards, searches, things like that we've got. And we're really excited about this because honestly, like one of the legit criticisms of the tool has been everything was very heavily query driven, which is great if you like queries and you're a threat hunter and you're doing awesome stuff, but harder to just get started. So now we've got these kits where we can come in and we can do NetFlow. But the reason that I bring that up is like if I go in here and let's say I'm just doing some standard stuff, like let's say so this is an example query included with the NetFlow kit that we've got. That's just rare port usage. So because that's a common, it's a good thing to look at occasionally. That just says, what ports have been used on the network that we haven't seen before. Or that are weird. Is there something? Should we check into that? Kind of a typical anomaly type thing. And so, if I just launch this over the last hour here, we might see that there's a lot of stuff in here, and then this query is also doing things like looking up service names and protocol resolution.
And Corey, that query was associated with this dashboard, right?
Yeah, with the NetFlow V5 kit. Mm-hmm. This query comes with it. So then, so you can go into what we call our query library, which has a bunch of sort of the pre-built queries that will come with the dashboard. I can filter and based on, I can like grab from the NetFlow kit. And make sure that I'm looking at stuff.
I love that though, because I often find myself when I'm using a particular tool or framework, right, searching for like I want to do this space example, right, and I don't know, it's hit or miss, right? You might find, if you're lucky, exactly what you're looking for. You might find something close, but in your interface, what I love is I can see all the pre-built dashboards and go, I want something like that, but different, and look at the query and modify it. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Yeah, so then it helps people get started. And then, if I want to pivot this out or add some filtering on it, that's something that I can just put into the query syntax up there.
Right.
So one of the things that I might be interested in, like, let's say, I don't know what this is. So if I've got a network flow, this is where Packet Fleet kind of comes in. And so I've got Packet Fleet running on a different server on the network here. And this is new in Gravwell as well, as we have actionables. So now things are more clickable, which we're really excited about as well. And so that just helps people speed around the interface a little bit more without having to stick in the query system.
And sorry, Corey, you said just now that so Stenographer, Packet Fleet, Gravwell, right? Those are all Docker containers that can run in anywhere, right? The three different systems if you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And so our official container, I actually don't know. So our official container for Gravwell has, for the Packet Fleet, includes Stenographer in it. And that's up on Docker Hub.
Yep.
It's got some, basic instructions, kind of a README for getting started. But that's what I'm doing on my collector.
Gotcha.
Is I just copy pasted this,
Yep.
gave it the right interface, and then now it's listening. Stenographer's listening, and Packet Fleet is automatically interfacing with it. It only gets more complicated if you have multiple Packet Fleet or multiple Stenographer instances, because then you have to do the certificate pinning. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward.
Oh, I see. So you put Stenographer in the same container as Packet Fleet, then you don't have to do the certificate pinning because they're essentially running in the same, well, in this case, container. We'll just say that, right? So you don't have to do that certificate pinning.
Yep, exactly. And so that's what we were doing for that container, just to make it easier. If you're doing things a little bit more manually, you might have to worry about that. But
yep.
And so if I come over to the Packet Fleet interface, it's fairly bare bones because it's a pretty straightforward thing, really. We're going to give it a query syntax. So this is like a TCP dump filter, but a little bit less. It's a little bit more limited, but that's the idea. And then down here, these checkboxes where, in this instance, I've only got one because I broke the other one earlier today when I was messing with it because of the certificate problem. So this is my default Stenographer instance. And so essentially what Packet Fleet will do is go out to those and give it the query and then automatically bring those into Gravwell for analysis. And so if I set source override is a thing that we've got in Gravwell that lets us just sort of tag data as coming from a place. It's a metadata system, but if I'm conducting an investigation, this might be like an investigation number or something, if I was interested in getting the actual packets out for this thing. And so if I just say, I want all packets for this guy, or if I do port 8765 or whatever, I think that was what it was when I looked at it, and then run that, then that source should come back in here. I mean, that was really quick because there was hardly anything in there, but let's see if this resolves. Oops. I keep doing that. Okay.
So Corey, you imported the packets through Packet Fleet from Stenographer. You gave it a tag of 11. Then you queried Gravwell for that tag.
Yep, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And then that gives me the results. And then in Gravwell, if I, so we have a few different rendering modules. If I pass that into the Pcap Rendering module, then it'll print out aspects of the packets. But in this example, I think it's just a super simple thing. But what I can do is I can, if this was like a larger Pcap or something. So just to kind of take a step back from the higher level, the reason that we made this was for customers in the OT space originally, but it's got use for a lot of places, particularly where things like, okay, you've got a sensor, whether it's a Force Scout Silent Defense, Nozomi, Dragos, or something that says, hey, your PLC has updated its logic, or it's got new firmware that got pushed to it. You might want to automatically create something that just says, you know what, anytime that happens, I'm just going to go grab the PCAP, automatically ingest it, so I've got it.
Yeah. Is this the Stuxnet example where they analyzed the number of requests from firmware that was not tainted with malware versus ones that were, and the ones that were tainted with malware sent more packets than the one that wasn't, right?
Right, exactly. So there's that kind of anomalous stuff that you can do when you've got flow information, which is important. But even just for something like forensic analysis or malware analysis, having the packet capture of the firmware getting pushed, unless it's encrypted or something, is really valuable for doing reverse engineering, because you might not always be able to get it off the device either. It depends on what's going on. So it's just shoring up our bets that way. And then within Gravwell, once you've got a flow sort of identified here, or not even necessarily flow, I misspoke there, just a set of packets over time, then I can download that to a PCAP file, which then I can go ahead and load in Wireshark and do the analysis typically. So you saw how I was before I was doing the VLAN analysis and doing counting, and Gravwell has, we can look at the individual aspects of the packets. But when it comes to, once you're actually digging in there, there's not really a tool that beats Wireshark. In
terms of
for the stuff that you're doing,
easily being able to pull that firmware as a file out of that.
If you're going to extract from a stream or something, because that's not what we're trying to do. But I mean, Gravwell's built to handle tons of data. So if you've got a large, because I don't know if you've ever loaded, a large PCAP in Wireshark, multi-gigabytes is not a fun time. And so that's the exact kind of thing where if I've got Gravwell, I might just add some super basic filtering, right? That says, let's just grab from this source, 10.0.0.7, filter based on that, and then let me export that to.
Can I chop those out then and save them as a file? So I'm sure. I mean, can I just take that like findings from the filter and can I cut that out and save it as another PCAP file?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Okay. So that's where our export in the download menu here is.
All right.
So you can actually load it as a PCAP file.
I figured you could, but I just.
That was an important aspect of things because, once you get into the low-level packet stuff, then Wireshark is going to be where you want to be. But for large packet captures, or if you're grabbing from multiple stenographers and loading in multiple PCAPs in Wireshark, that can be a pain in the butt a little bit. Whereas Gravwell, it's super easy. If Packet Fleet sends it all back, then we'll assemble it for you and then you can kick it out there.
Well, like one of the things I was doing once was grabbing like skinnies out of there and then reassembling them. So I had to write a script to identify them all and put them back together, and then you put them in Wireshark and you can play the telephone conversation.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. So if you could sort those out right here and pull them together, you could
save you from having to write that.
You could export that out, save me from writing a script. So I could actually be I could kind of use this as a wiretap.
Yeah.
We won't say that too loud, but I mean that was what we were doing essentially, because I actually called the attorney and said, are we going to get in trouble for this? He's like, well, as long as it's in house, but you could literally grab all your VoIPs or your skinnies or SIPs or whatever you're using for audio.
Provided someone's not calling from another state or country, then you have to take into account the law anyway.
Yeah, we won't get into that, but you could. So I was just
Doug consulted with his attorney. That was
just an example, though. I was just just hypothetically. You could use this that way. It was an interesting thought about how I could use this Gravwell product too. So,
yes, but that's the idea. So that's our whole jam, is trying to get data in one spot, make it searchable, make it fast to pivot around. Because fusing this with like host data, syslog stuff, it can get you some really interesting things.
Yeah, Corey, I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned ubiquity access points, and one of the features was. Deep packet inspection is a feature on Ubiquity, and also Ubiquities can generate syslogs, and then you could have Packet Fleet and Stenographer, but all of that can essentially funnel up into Gravwell, and you could use Gravwell to kind of sort and filter and all that stuff and all the data that you're getting.
Exactly.
Wi-Fi,
so one of like a concrete example is so I don't have the Ubiquity deep packet.
You have to pay for that, or you need a unified gateway or something.
I think that's their paid solution, and I don't have that, in the lab here anyway. But one of the things that we have done is so Ubiquity will syslog when max associate or join and leave or whatever. Yep. And I had some device. It was some IoT thing And it was like in the Ubiquity logs. I have just Ubiquity dashboard, and it was like there was this giant spike of these things. What the heck is going on here? So, and so then that was exactly what I was trying to do, was pull this up and see, grab the packets off of it, see what this device is even trying to do, what it's talking to, why it couldn't. And it was like it couldn't reach some static code IP address that was from a test environment. I don't know.
In China.
Yeah, something. And it couldn't get there. And so then it was disassociating and reassociating. It was messed up. But yeah, exactly. I used the syslogs to start the investigation. That was my tip, right? It's a tip hunt. That was the tip. I said, okay, something's wrong here. I've got an abnormal situation with this. So let me go to my other data sources that I've got and figure out what's going on. And so that's where it kind of turned into the PCAPS or didn't happen situation, because I'm like, I don't know, what this thing is actually trying to do when it's trying to reach out and talk to these things, or where the problem is. But
I also like that for pulling the firmware as it comes across the wire.
Yeah,
yes.
I think that's important for a lot of reasons, right? Larry's saying yes because there are some devices where, like, if you don't have an account, maybe sometimes even if you do, they don't let you download the firmware. Right. It's really only over the air, and I want to be able to reverse engineer the firmware, right? Because I can do that now. Thank you, EFF, which is awesome. But also, I can use that to verify, is the firmware that it pulled down really the firmware that it should be running, right? Is that firmware somehow tainted in some way or backdoored, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's how sort of like the next level of sophistication when it comes to this kinds of stuff is you can set up automatic alerting within our system or whatever you're using that says, this firmware went. And so then you can trigger Packet Fleet to go and grab the PCAPS within their ring buffer too. So depending on how you've got it set up, you might only be grabbing the last 30 minutes of packets. You might be grabbing the last day. But then that lets you trigger that and go out and say, yeah, actually give me the underlying packets to this, because you're not going to collect all the packets all the time and just keep those
forever.
And that's just critically important to me in ICS-OT stuff, because if you've got devices in your ICS, a lot of times there's layers of firmware, and you may not have people that truly understand what's inside that box. You'll see that stuff plugged in, and you don't know what it's doing. So being able to trigger it and say, grab this stuff, and then we'll wait. We're going to go look and see what happened, and then we'll analyze it, and then we'll make a decision about this before we let this go ahead, I think would be really, really critical thing to be able to do.
It's interesting we went down this firmware discussion because Corey, as soon as you said there was a device that was doing all this spike of traffic, and I'm like, firmware update.
Yeah. Yep.
that was my initial assessment.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's how we're helping our customers, but we want to help the community in similar way. If people have home labs, home setups, you want to be able to monitor the IoT devices. You want to make sure things are talking on the VLANs that they're supposed to talk. You don't accidentally have something misconfigured. Especially, I'm using Netgear on, semi-smart switches. So it's not even like I have a central management or anything. So I could easily forget a port being on the wrong thing. Somebody just comes, plugs in this new fancy thing, or some other device pops on the Wi-Fi. It's just kind of like you said, Paul, like taking your home network game up and dialing it up and being able to monitor what's going on. Because the general consumer trend is to hide all that from you.
Yes.
Right. Apple and Google don't want you to even know that that's a thing. So.
I think on the enterprise front, we've always tried to put those devices on separate networks, right? But what I love about your technical demo is that I can trigger on certain events and grab those packet captures. That's super helpful, especially in an enterprise when you've got 100 times more packet capture data than you do at home, right? And you've got to be surgical about it, right? And in certain events are more important than, or potentially more important than others, and being able to save off just those events, I think, is super awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Not just security. You've got DevOps, you got reliability stuff that you got to worry about for this. So
it's such a huge
troubleshooting
task.
in general.
It's such a huge task in an enterprise because it's just so voluminous and crazy. Yeah. Even at home, it's bad, but you start talking about some kind of a power plant or something where they've got 10,000 devices or out there, and all of them may be made by different manufacturers. Or That's a nice tool.
I mean, what we term today as IoT in the enterprise has always been there, right? ICS, of course, it's always been there since the beginning of time, right? But in enterprise, I mean, I can remember working for a university and talking with the HVAC folks in operations, and there were computer systems that were controlling the climate and temperature and humidity for a building because there were animals that were being used in medical experiments, right? I mean that issue aside, that type of research was happening at this university, and the integrity of these systems were super important because there were animals at risk, right? And experiments and research dollars and all that stuff at risk. So, I mean, this stuff has been around forever. And that's just, IoT is just one example, right? Mm-hmm. There's a million other, and that's what I like about, you can query it for anything, right? Your imagination is the only thing that's really limiting you as to what you can program in and collect and analyze.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And getting the PCAPS or it didn't happen. Like sometimes you got to get to the root cause.
And it doesn't rely on agents.
You want to make sure you do it.
Right.
I mean, that's another really nice feature of it, because one of the problems is if you rely on agents, you have to be able to install those agents. So when you get off into IoT, all this kind of stuff, sometimes you can't do that. I mean, there's no way to install an agent on some gadget you bought that was manufactured. Mm-hmm. You have no mechanism to do that. I like
so if you guys don't mind, let me just quick plug for the community. Because we do want people's help in making this tool better, and we currently have the beta program up for some of the new features, including making this all automated and awesome. And like I said, if you participate in the beta, like we're up in the caps on this stuff. We want to make it more accessible to the community. So if you head over to gravwell.io/beta-program or securityweekly.com/Gravwell, or reach out any one of those ways. We definitely would appreciate testers on some of this stuff. We want to keep kicking out more tools. We want to make it more accessible to the community for home labs, for awesome stuff that people are doing, as well as our enterprise customers.
Was that the robot from the Jetsons? I was wondering what she'd been up to all these years after the series.
It looks like it was modeled after.
It's her estranged romantic interest.
Oh, that's what was going on. Yeah. See,
this is Logbot. This is our friendly neighborhood Logbot. He gives you your license. He sends you a few emails. He does good things. This is Jake again, the same guy who did the sticker, made this poster.
Great stuff. Corey, there's a question from our live stream. What can Gravwell do that Splunk can't besides the cheaper price tag?
I think like in this instance, we're talking about binary data. Which is pretty important because we store that natively, as is. You don't have to convert it to text or anything like that firsthand, which was kind of actually one of the reasons that we founded the company, because we were on a project where we were doing a lot of BGP work and trying to use a tool, and it wasn't working because a big chunk of time was spent just converting it to text.
Yep.
So there's some technical stuff, some scalability things. So I mean, we're pretty excited about what we built and how we did it. Kind of taking a look at the go wide approach. Like I said, we use Go for the whole thing, so it's a custom data lake from top to bottom. Because we looked out there for things like InfluxDB and some other stuff to kind of make use of this, but it just kind of wasn't cutting it, and so we had to build our own, which is a crazy undertaking. But many years later, I think it does pretty cool stuff. So.
Unrelated question. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, Corey, I'm immediately interested in one of those sort of use cases that we were talking about. Being able to potentially automatically capture, like firmware updates for IoT devices, in much the case that Paul was talking about. Hey, this thing is you can't get the firmware because it's locked behind that walled garden. I'd love to be able to automatically pull that stuff off the wire when it happens, whenever it does happen.
Also, unrelated question. In the documentation language, is it latex or LaTeX?
LaTeX? I say LaTeX.
LaTeX.
I think it's LaTeX. I told you because Doug said it was latex. I called it latex, and Doug usually calls things the wrong thing.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, we did switch to LaTeX for it, which I hadn't touched since grad school.
Yeah,
doing a thesis.
Yes, very popular for that type of work. Any case. More questions for Corey. Yes, go ahead, Lee.
I was just wondering, I'm thinking we're talking about all this packet filtering and, you don't want to exceed whatever your limit is. How prepared do you think people are wanting to play with Gravwell to actually do filtering, or versus just saying they could just tell it, grab all the things and we'll be fine?
Well, that's an unfortunate thing about the community edition, because for any paid Gravwell license, we don't have caps. There's no such thing as license caps or data caps for Gravwell. So if it's paid, then it's unlimited data always, no matter what.
Rock on.
No EPS, no user seats, none of that garbage. Because
which
it's
is
really
a big differentiator. Well, it's a big differentiator between Gravwell and Splunk, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But for the community, so we try and do programs like if you're an active community user, we'll hook you up. That's not a problem at all. But that's the only time that we have any data caps for stuff, because our general philosophy is ingest everything all the time. Just put in there, because storage is not very expensive. Our largest deployment was doing over 100 terabytes a day. Granted, at that level, then storage starts to get expensive. But you can get 6 terabyte drives for not that much. So especially if you've got a home lab or something,
they're like $100 or so.
Yeah, they're so cheap. It's just
collect it all. So I almost say, Larry, just keep it. Just collect all your PCAPs except for maybe like 443. But otherwise, just grab everything.
Unless those firmware updates are going over 443, but then you got other problems, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can go by device, right? Like everything from this IoT device, collect everything, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Awesome stuff, Corey. And is all this available today? Like what timeline?
So Packet Fleet, the Docker container, is out there. The docs are updated. Stenographer is a great standalone project as well that you guys should check out if you're just looking for something to collect stuff and you don't want to mess with Gravwell or anything. I highly recommend it. Obviously, we built stuff on top of it. But all this is out there today, and the community edition's available. Our beta program's up. So absolutely.
And so you have a beta program for what did you call the next release again?
The Big Bang release.
The Big Bang release.
Version 4.0.
Sweet.
It's got all the nice the kits and the clickables and all the really big user interface and usability improvements.
Love it.
Just got to get Big Bang in my head and not say something else. But
right.
Big Bang.
Yeah.
Yes. Big Bang. Well, Corey, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly. Folks that want to learn more can go to securityweekly.com/Gravwell. I highly encourage everyone to, of course, check out the free product, be involved with the beta. Corey wants your feedback, which is awesome.
So give it. I mean, this is an awesome product. So
yeah, I mean, people complain I don't like this product or that product. Here's your opportunity to give your feedback.
Let them know.
Directly. So awesome, Corey. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
With that, we'll take a short break. Come back with the security news for this week. Stay tuned.